idea to put a ban on stock trading for members of Congress is even a thing is because of Nancy Pelosi. I mean, she is rightfully criticized because she makes, I think, $174,000 a year, yet she has a net worth of approximately $413 million. In 2024, Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio, this was a fascinating statistic to me, grew 70% in 1 year.
Nancy Pelosi's political career didn't end with celebration. It ended with a takedown. Joe Rogan and Karoline Leavitt led the charge. There was no respectful send-off, no soft farewell. What they delivered was a ruthless goodbye that tore through years of manufactured image, calculated performances, and selective outrage disguised as economic concern. Pelosi was exposed as a control-obsessed figure wrapped in high-end fashion and protected by prearranged media appearances. Anyone expecting grace in her exit was misled. This wasn't criticism. It was full-blown destruction. And it was ruthless in a way that made it impossible to ignore.
Do you see the Nancy Pelosi thing? The new one?
She was being interviewed and then was like, I didn't want to talk about that.
Anderson Cooper. We put that on. Anderson Cooper, he sneaks it in. She's like, I came in here to talk about the anniversary of Medicaid. Like, she cares about Medicaid. She's worth an estimated $400 million now.
How? What's the salary? 70,000 a year?
170 grand a year, something like that. 200 grand a year.
People on this, he doesn't want to see people like Nancy Pelosi enriching themselves off of public service and ripping off their constituents in the process. As for the mechanics of the legislation and how it will move forward, the White House continues to be in discussions with our...
Joe and Karoline didn't tease her. They shredded her political reputation. This wasn't satire or sarcasm. It was a verbal firestorm aimed at decades of political dodging, outdated leadership. Okay. And a persona supported by cosmetic upgrades and empty slogans.
The amount of stock trading that's done by members of Congress, the amount of fucking money that they make when they know decisions that are going to be signed and passed, they know laws that are going to be put into place. They know, like there was one recently that we're talking about Nancy Pelosi and the amount of money she invested in Tesla right before Biden signed this EV bill. Electric vehicle bill. It's like 1.2 million. Find out if that's true.
Pelosi held on to her power like it was her last grip on relevance. Joe went at her like a fighter aiming for a knockout. He opened with her lavish lifestyle. During a national crisis, while average Americans were searching store aisles for toilet paper, Pelosi gave interviews showing off her premium dessert stash. She flaunted her estate while local businesses collapsed to her. Leadership meant cameras, not action.
Agreements. Here, let's watch this because it's so funny.
Let me just read what he said. I'm sorry that we had some sort of technical issue. Nancy Pelosi became rich.
Why do you have to read that? We're here to talk about the 60th anniversary of Medicaid. That's what I agreed to come to talk about.
Yeah, but I wanted
what that means in the election.
I wanted to give you a chance just to respond. He accused you of insider trading. What's your response to that?
That's ridiculous. In fact, I very much support the stop the trading of members of Congress. Not that I think anybody's doing anything wrong. If they are prosecuted and they...
Karoline wasn't subtle either. She saw Pelosi's entire legacy as contradiction after contradiction. One moment she claimed to be defending democracy. The next she was tearing up official speeches in front of Congress. Her gestures didn't look like leadership. They looked like temper tantrums. If she once had principles, they disappeared somewhere between wealthy fundraisers and secret negotiations.
If you talked with the president about his position on the stock trading ban bill for Congress, he obviously had loaded comments about Senator Hawley. There's some reporting that he's since spoken. What is his position on the current status of that bill?
The president has spoken to Senator Hawley, who called him, and the president took that call. As the president said in the Roosevelt Room yesterday, conceptually, he, of course, supports the idea of ensuring that members of Congress and United States senators who are here for public service cannot...
Joe pointed out how Pelosi's leadership was built more on showmanship than solutions. She always seemed to react after the fact, using chaos to cover her tracks. She never owned her side's scandals, but always blamed the opposition. Her strategy seemed like a scripted drama, a mix of symbolic moves, endless anti-Trump talking points, and refusal to admit that her influence had passed its expiration date.
Stocks.
Well, insider trading is against the law.
Yeah.
How is that not insider trading?
Right.
If you know that someone's going to sign a bill and that bill is going to be a massive boost to the electrical vehicle industry, just as an example. And you know that bill's going to be signed. So right before that bill's signed, you buy a fuckload of stock in electrical vehicles. And then the next day, or whenever it was, that bill gets passed, and then that stock goes up, and you make a shit ton of money. How is that?
Every speech felt like watching a machine break down. She waved her hands like she was directing air traffic. Her voice sounded arrogant, yet her words were a mess. She acted surprised whenever someone questioned her, as if she hadn't signed off on a stimulus deal overloaded with irrelevant spending.
2024, and her portfolio outperformed every single large hedge fund in that same year, and even more than doubled the returns of Warren Buffett's Berkshire. Years later, Nancy Pelosi can thank President Trump today for the 104% retaliatory tariff that will be going into effect on China. In 2007, Chuck Schumer spoke of our nation's crippling trade deficit, saying these are the kinds of records the American people don't want us to be breaking. The administration needs to move beyond words, take action now to reverse a trend that threatens our prospects for future.
Joe didn't ignore her image. He went after it directly. He said her leadership was all about media, appearances, and matching outfits. She spent more time managing her reputation than fixing national problems. She shut down rising leaders instead of mentoring them, unless a solution came with a photo opportunity or prayer pose. She wasn't interested. Then came her stock market record. Year after year, she beat the odds like she had secret knowledge. Joe called it out, saying regular citizens would be millionaires if they had her kind of luck. And when asked about it, she evaded like a seasoned politician. Karoline added that Pelosi's career was never about public service. It was about staying in front of the camera. She quoted the Constitution often, but treated it more like a prop than a principle.
So transparent, and it's right in front of your face. Like the Nancy Pelosi situation. She's never made more than $175,000 a year. She's worth 100 and something million. Did you ever see the one where they confronted her about being able to insider trade? You never saw it?
No.
It's wild.
Over the course of your career, has your husband ever made a stock purchase or sale based on information received from you?
No, absolutely not.
Pushes the mic away and leaves.
Pelosi's political identity was built on contradictions, she accused Trump of division while engaging in the same tactics. Her speeches were less about unity and more about maintaining power, Joe highlighted how she treated politics like performance. If it wasn't being filmed, it didn't seem to matter. When major cities were in crisis, she wore symbolic outfits and made the moment about herself. That wasn't justice. It was branding. She didn't hand off leadership. She held onto it tightly like it was a personal asset. Karoline closed her portion by pointing out that Pelosi's idea of progress looked more like regular Botox appointments in growing bank accounts. She gave dramatic speeches and passed legislation that few even bothered to read.
Watching the panic in her face, realizing that Trump is now president, and they're talking about literally going after her for insider trading, and the undeniable evidence that they have had better results on the stock market than literally anyone ever.
Yeah.
And they have access to information about laws that are going to be passed.
Yeah.
If that's not insider trading, what?
Joe wrapped up by asking the obvious question. How can someone spend 50 years in government and leave behind such a mess? The answer, he said, was simple. Fixing anything was never the point. Her entire career was an act built around her own name. She controlled the narrative, demanded praise, and left a trail of dysfunction. She didn't exit on a high note. She quietly stepped away under a spotlight. She refused to dim. She talked about ethics while playing every political game available. She claimed transparency. It made backroom deals the standard. If hypocrisy were a career path, she would have earned lifetime job security. Joe compared her to outdated software. Slow, clunky, and long overdue for deletion.
She's older than Biden. Like, chill out. Go on a vacation.
The things he says are so inappropriate for a president of the United States. The comments he makes about women.
Also, why are you still doing it? You're older than Biden.
You're asking me about the appropriateness of the actions of this president. So completely inappropriate in so many ways. It's almost a given.
It's not even about the money. It's about access, the power.
He comes in with doggy-do on his shoes, and everybody who works with him has that on their shoes, too.
The people who carry your bags and toady after.
Now, as she fades out behind a carefully managed goodbye tour, the country is left with the aftermath. Failed legislation, speeches that didn't age well, a resume filled with shallow victories. Ironically, stepping down may have been the most helpful thing she did. Into that silence stepped Joe and Karoline. They didn't come with applause. They came with the truth. They stripped away the image and exposed what was underneath. No matter how many magazine covers she posed for, or how often she criticized Trump, none of it hid reality. Pelosi was not a revolutionary. She was a relic pretending to be one. And with that, the myth collapsed.
In June of 1996, Nancy Pelosi spoke on the House floor. She urged her colleagues at the time to fight against the status quo trade policies that had contributed to America's trade deficit with China. In fact, Nancy Pelosi said, how far does China have to go? How much more repression? How big a trade deficit? How many jobs have to be lost for the American workers? How much dangerous proliferation has to exist before members of this House of Representatives will say, I will not endorse the status quo? Those are the words of Nancy Pelosi in 1996.
Her exit didn't bring answers. It raised more questions. Joe didn't stop there. He pulled apart what remained of her legacy. Beneath the polished speeches and headlines was a long list of failures, dressed up to look like progress. She spent years framing dysfunction as strength, all while keeping the spotlight on herself. Joe explained her favorite tactic clearly. She acted morally superior while doing what was most convenient. Her values were empty. Her words rehearsed, Karoline made it clear that Pelosi wasn't irreplaceable. She made herself essential by forcing out fresh voices and standing in their way. She didn't clear a path. She blocked it. New leaders didn't rise because of her. They had to fight their way around her presence, dealing with drama and applause cues on the way.
Hold on. Pelosi's husband invested in Tesla, but not as viral post claims. Okay, so it's bullshit. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi purchased $1.25 million in stock from the electric vehicle company Tesla a day later.
Joe then tackled the insider trading issue. He exposed the absurdity of a top politician, consistently outperforming professional investors. While regular families dealt with inflation, Pelosi seemed to have perfect market timing. And when confronted, she responded with fake surprise, deflection, and anger that anyone would even ask. Karoline called her farewell dramatic, as if she were a reluctant queen stepping down. Then Joe dropped the final blow. Pelosi wasn't just caught in the system. She built parts of it. She called herself a defender of democracy, but presided over one of the most divided political eras in history. She erased bipartisanship, weakened public trust, turned outrage into standard procedure.
Yeah. Because this is a free market and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
She's telling why her husband should be able to invest in stuff that she knows about.
Have you ever seen a person look more nervous?
Yeah. It was the long sip, the gulp afterwards, and then...
The only thing she successfully united was her team's ability to shift blame toward Trump, and now. Ironically, Trump is president again. That says enough. Karoline ended with one final strike. For all her talk about protecting democracy, Pelosi never seemed to trust it. She didn't trust voters. She didn't embrace honest debate. She only supported reform, when she could control it. What she truly fought for was power. Her time in office was not about building a better system. It was about holding on to influence, image, and control. Now that legacy is exposed for what it really was, not a monument to progress, but a symbol of performance politics. A long career built on dramatic speeches, luxury wardrobes, and convenient financial moves. She leaves behind a broken Congress, a frustrated nation, and a public image inflated. Beyond reality, Joe and Karoline close with finality. No more applause, no more tears. Just the truth. Despite everything she claimed about serving the people, Pelosi mostly served herself. And when all is said and done, not even the haircut will be remembered.